Space Ghost is a fictional character created by Hanna-Barbera Productions and designed by Alex Toth for CBS in the 1960s. Space Ghost is credited with being almost single-handedly responsible for the popularity of superhero cartoons in the 60s. In his original incarnation, he was a superhero who, with his sidekick team helpers Jan, Jake, and Blip the monkey, fought supervillains in outer space. In the 1990s, the character was brought back as a host for his own fictional late-night talk show, Space Ghost Coast to Coast, on Cartoon Network and Adult Swim. In the 2000s, he was revamped as a serious superhero once again in a mini-series by DC Comics. Television series Space Ghost and Dino Boy. The original series debuted in 1966, in which the Space Ghost segments shared time with an unrelated segment called Dino Boy in the Lost Valley. Space Ghost was voiced by Gary Owens, Tim Matheson voiced Jake and Ginny Tyler voiced Jan. Don Messick provided vocalizations for Blip. Space Ghost and his helpers fought such recurring supervillains as Malta, Zorak, Black Widow, Metalis, Brak, and Creature King. The original series comprised 42 Space Ghost and 18 Dino Boy episodes, and ended in 1968. Space Stars 22 new Space Ghost segments appeared on Space Stars on NBC in 1981. The episodes introduced a new assortment of villains including an evil version of Space Ghost named Space Spectre who came from an alternate universe. His spaceship, the Phantom Cruiser, was also given a sleeker and more modernized look. As in the original series, Space Ghost often came to the aid of the Herculoids and vice versa. They also frequently crossed paths with the Teen Force, and it appeared that Jan and Teen Force member Kid Comet were dating as well. Gary Owens reprised his role as Space Ghost, but Tim Matheson was replaced by Steve J. Spears as the voice of Jake, Ginny Tyler was replaced by Alexandra Stewart as the voice of Jan, and Don Messick was replaced by Frank Welker as the vocal effects for Blip. Space Ghost Coast to Coast. The character Space Ghost hosts a talk show, Space Ghost Coast to Coast, which began broadcasting in 1994 on Cartoon Network. One-time villain Zorak and Malta were Space Ghost sidekicks. The show, as well as the short-lived Cartoon Planet, was a spoof of late-night shows such as The Late Show with David Letterman. Celebrities interviewed by Space Ghost included Beck, Bill Nye the Science Guy, magicians Penn and Teller, Cassandra Peterson also known as Elvira, Hansen, Joel Hodgson, Carrot Top, Jim Carrey, John Benjamin, Conan O'Brien, Thurston Moore, Pavement, Adam West, Paragraph RK, Thom Yorke, Weird Al Yankovic, Goldie Hawn, Timothy Leary and Mark Hamill. In the series, he is played by George Lowe. The show relied heavily on absurd, surreal or even Dadaist humor. Space Ghost Coast to Coast continued to 2004 as the oldest program on Cartoon Network's late-night comedy action programming block, Adult Swim. The characters of Jan, Jake and Blip, Space Ghost's old sidekicks, appeared twice on the show. After approximately 8 seasons, the show went into hiatus, and the writers Dave Willis and Matt Lara used characters they developed in an unaired episode to create another popular would-be spin-off, Aqua Teen Hunger Force. After that show proved successful, Buffalo Meal was animated and aired in 2003. New episodes of Space Ghost Coast to Coast appeared on the animation channel of the Game Tap service, beginning on May 30, 2006. Most guests were either gaming celebrities or musicians. On May 31, 2008, the show ended when the TV section of Game Tap shut down. Actors: 3 actors played Space Ghost in the 3 main Space Ghost series, Gary Owens in Space Ghost, Space Stars and Batman, The Brave and the Bold. George Lowe in Space Ghost Coast to Coast, Cartoon Planet, The Brak Show, Squidbillies, Perfect Hair Forever, Robot Chicken, Aqua Teen Hunger Force: movie filmed for theaters and Cartoon Network, Punch Time Explosion, Andy Merrill in Space Ghost Coast to Coast as live-action Space Ghost, and Cartoon Planet as Dancin' Space Ghost. Comics: Space Ghost has appeared in the following comic books: Hanna-Barbera Super TV Heroes, Golden Comics Digest, TV Stars, Space Ghost, Cartoon Network presents, Space Ghost. Action figures. Space Ghost's coast-to-coast version was released as an action figure by Toysom, complete with a desk and chair, a series of cue cards and a mug. Also included were several different sets of hands, allowing the figure to be used either as the talk show host or the superhero or both. The shoulders and neck were ball-jointed, with a light plastic yellow cape. A transparent variant invisible figure and a variant with electric light-up power band were also released. A repaint of this figure was used to create a Space Spectre figure. In 2012 a new Space Ghost figure was released in the Jazzwares Hanna-Barbera series and came with a pack-in of Blip. References. External links: Space Ghost at the Internet Movie Database, Space Ghost and Dino Boy at the Big Cartoon Database, Space Stars at the Big Cartoon Database, Space Ghost Coast to Coast at the Big Cartoon Database.